Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to host this IBT Thought Leadership session today with Dr. Mukesh Aghi, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the US India Strategic Partnership Forum. Dr. Aghi has extensive experience working with business and government leaders in the US and India to promote trade and strengthen ties between the two countries. He also currently serves as a trustee at Claremont Graduate University. Previously, Dr. Aghi served as Chief Executive and member of the board at L&T Infotech, as well as Chairman and CEO of the Asia Pacific region at Styria Inc. India. He was the founding CEO of Universitas 21 Global, the world's largest consortium of research-led universities and global leader in providing postgraduate online education. He was also the president of IBM India for IBM Corporation and spent time working with Ariba Inc. and JD Edwards & Co. As a fluent speaker in many international languages, Dr. Aghi was recognized by Esquire magazine as a global leader and has won many awards over the course of his professional career, including the JRD Tata Leadership Award. Most recently, he was also the recipient of the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman Award. Today, we will be talking to him about the state of Indo-US relations, the main drivers of mutual synergies over the years, and ways to strengthen the bilateral partnership in line with its exceptional potential. Morning, Dr. Mukesh Aghi. It's a pleasure to have you on our IBT Thought Leadership platform today.
Well, good morning. It's a pleasure to be on.
Thank you, sir. So, regarding our discussion on Indo-US relations, my first question to you is related to the recent first virtual Quad meeting held between the leaders of US, India, Australia, and Japan. How do you see the prospects of this Quad phenomenon, and how will it enhance bilateral ties and trade, particularly in the post-COVID period?
Well, when you look at the Quad itself, it's a country with same values, same ambitions, focus on democracies, and focus on international rule of the order itself. So it is a alliances where both four countries are coming together to drive a agenda of keeping international rule of the law open itself. I think it's important to understand Quad also provides a tremendous opportunity, which is economic. When you look at the total GDP of these four countries, it's around $33 trillion. And when you look at the FTA so far has been signed between Japan and India. India and Australia are at the final stage of negotiation, and sometime with US it will start. So what I see is in the near term, a Quad turning into an economic Quad or economic bubble, which will drive trade and other issues much, much stronger among the four countries.
So, secondly, how do you view the evolution of trade and investment between India and US over the past 2 decades? Which are the main sectors which have driven this growth? And where do you feel we can focus more to tap the untapped potential of our trade going forward?
Well, I think when you look at India-US trade has gone up almost $160 billion two-way trade. But the potential is much, much bigger. We believe that it can go up to $500 billion. And it's important to start focusing on that. In fact, at one of our events, Vice President Biden that time in 2015 put a vision document saying that the trade has to go up to $500 billion to realize the full potential of the two countries itself. Now, when you look at it from an India perspective, you know, the biggest export has been more of commodities and services. And from the US, it has been more of defense and I would say other high-tech area, airplanes coming in. The biggest export besides services from India is drugs, the pharma healthcare. In fact, Indian companies have almost 40% of the local generic market itself. Now, when you move forward, I believe the potential is tremendous, especially definitely in services, healthcare, but also I think we have to look at the emerging technologies which are coming, artificial intelligence, 5G. When you look at areas which are focused on trying to do predictive analysis. So I strongly believe that you will see more and more upswing happening between the two countries. And it is not necessary that US will keep on exporting defense equipment. If you look at last 3 years, the US export in energy sector has gone up dramatically. 3 years ago, India did not import any oil from the US. And as of last week, the daily import is almost 526,000 barrels a day. So we see energy partnership, energy security between the two countries moving up in the near future.
One of the most interesting things I've always found in Indo-US relations is the Indian diaspora. How do you feel it has really strengthened ties between the two nations? And there has been some issues on H-1B and the long waiting list for green card applications. So, given these issues, how do you feel we can strengthen this synergy in the coming years?
Well, when you look at globally, you have approximately 30 million Indians around the world, and they are the biggest sender of money back to India. So almost 70 plus $billion on an annual basis, which does help India's foreign exchange reserves. Now, when you look at US India, we have around 4.5 million Indian Americans. On a per capita basis, the highest income compared to the average American, double the size, most qualified from an education perspective, most philanthropic, and one of the most engaged in the political process, because most of them come, they come in and they understand the democratic process, so they engage. In fact, when you look at the Biden administration today, over 60 plus Indian Americans are in the senior position in the Biden administration. I think it's important to understand that they are playing and they will play a very pivotal role between US and India. Just like the Jewish American lobby, Indian American lobby will play a very, very strong role. The question is what happens with the second generation? Because the first generation of Indian Americans are emotionally attached back to the mother country. Is the second generation where I think we have to start thinking, how do we leverage them, manage that, and to make sure they don't lose bond with their ancestral country itself. So that's the challenge we have. But on the question of H-1B, the Biden administration has made a statement that immigration is good. Legal immigration is good for the country. And when we look at, we have a shortage of almost 1 million software engineers in America. These engineers make US company effective, efficient, competitive. And so there's a need. And when these software H-1B workers come into the country, day one, they become taxpayer. Day one, they start innovating. Day one, they start bringing the IP strength of the country on a global basis. So it is a win-win value proposition for both countries. So we support easing of H-1B visas in a legal way to make sure that people come in and become a net contributor to the economy, to the technology, and to the innovation process.
So a recent issue which we have seen is regarding the digital services tax, where US is considering retaliatory action. But India has affirmed that this is a non-discriminatory provision, though US says it is, and domestic e-commerce operators already face taxation. What do you see a possible consensus solution for this could be, as it could complicate rate ties, because we have obviously the GSP at the back of our minds, just 1 or 2 years back.
Well, I think on, I would say on our transactional issues, there will be disagreements between two countries. But I strongly believe there's enough maturity to find a viable solution, which is win-win. You have to understand the Biden administration will not sacrifice the broader geopolitical alignment of India to a transactional issues. So I think we will find, I mean, say, if you look at MSP, for example, for the farm goods, which US opposes it in a WTO. and whereas India supports it. And if you look at the tweets from celebrities talking about it, so I think the transaction issues and will be there. There'll be disagreements, just like any other family itself. But I strongly believe that there's enough network, enough connect, enough maturity that we'll find a viable solution, be it digital, be it MSP pricing, or anything else.
One important issue that has come up in the past year in particular is the uh, global passion, or you can say obsession, with de-risking manufacturing supply chains. So this is a need for the US. On the other hand, India is looking at strengthening its manufacturing. So how do you see this collaboration or synergy between the two coming up in the coming years?
Well, it's happening. I think when you look at US has been very much dependent on China for a lot of its manufacturing. And it has been dependent on India, especially on generic drugs. And almost $100 billion saving comes to the US government when it buys those generics from India. But you have to understand 70% of the API of those generic drugs comes from China. So there has to be a de-risking of that supply chain. That's important. I think you have to look at 5G, for example. How do you basically not be dependent on China and have a cohesive partnership between India, US, Japan, and Australia? And so that's happening itself. So another example I can give you is Apple. Almost a few years ago, did not do any manufacturing in India. And in the last 24 months, it has moved its Apple smartphone 12 manufacturing in India. And today it is exporting over 400,000 phones a month from India to the rest of the world. And the next would be on iPad and other areas. So I think we are seeing a de-risking of supply chain happening as India plays a much more pivotal role in manufacturing some of these critical components and final product. And I have to say that the PLI scheme, which was put out by India, has been a big attraction to a lot of these companies, and they're taking advantage of that and moving manufacturing to India. And I would say that it does take time. It won't happen overnight. So you have to give some time, be patient. But what we are seeing is the momentum, the process is moving more and more manufacturing into India from China.
So another post-COVID thought which is gathering ground, the perspective that sustainable business, climate change are going to now become important issues once again. So India definitely has some very strong clean energy objectives. How do you feel this area we can have more cooperation, collaboration between the two countries? How can US help India in this regard and vice versa?
Well, I think sustainability is important. And I have to give credit to the government of India and the Prime Minister that early on, he signed up for renewable and has been beating up those numbers way beyond the commitment itself. So I think that's a compliment I want to give to the government of India. You have to understand that when you have an environment where air quality is poor, when your water becomes an issue, where 80% of the diseases come through waterborne diseases itself, then sustainability becomes critical. Sustainability also provides opportunity to the manufacturing segment of India. So a lot of renewable, biogas, other areas, India can take the lead and move a lot of the manufacturing from China into India. So I see a win-win value proposition both for India and the US as you look at sustainability agenda between the two countries.
So finally, I would like to ask you about the higher education ecosystem which India is looking to build and emerge as a prominent global education hub. How do you see US higher education institutes playing a role in this? And USISPF Higher Education Initiative is a key initiative which you have taken up. How does it plan to facilitate this interaction and collaboration?
Well, I think the most important thing you have to look at in higher education is research, because academia needs to be a hotbed of innovation, of ideas. And today, if when I look at the whole higher education system in India, the whole research innovation is lacking as you compare to the U.S. universities itself. So I think there has to be a shift in culture, and I think that's where the U.S. Universities can partner with Indian universities and bring that culture of innovation, bring that culture of research, have exchange of academics, thought processes. It will take time because you can't overnight change a culture which was built over the last 70 plus years itself. But I think the attitude, intent, and the commitment by government of India is very, very strong. And when I talk to the US universities, they're very keen to partner with Indian universities, because today we have over 200,000 Indian students in the US, and 70% are in STEM program. We would like to see that number go up to 500,000, but at the same time, be able to bring in quality, affordable education, which is research oriented right in India also. So we have multi-pronged strategy trying to drive that agenda in partnership with Government of India and also Indian universities to bring that to the home base.
So on the related aspect of innovation, if I may ask you, the US has played a prominent role in the evolution of India's startup ecosystem. How important do you see this synergy going forward, and how are you looking to strengthen it, if, in your as your forum, as part of the forum's agenda?
Well, we have a startup platform, and you have to understand startup create job. Startups disrupt the system. Startup innovate dramatically. And also you have to understand startups is a win-win for both countries. So we are bringing quite a few startups from India into the US, so they're able to provide their value proposition, get funding from the US market. What we are seeing is as startups come into the US, for every H-1B which they bring in, they hire 7 local employees. And these local employees' compensation is more like $170,000 per employee. So they are offering wages and compensation way above the market also. So it is a win-win for both countries. And we are focused on bringing those startups more and more into the US. And for every 5 startups which we have brought in, what we are saying is 2 become a unicorn whose market valuation above $1 billion. So I think you will see that momentum moving forward faster between the 2 countries.
Right, that will be all from our end today, sir. Thank you so much for this very interesting interaction. Actually, I know we've just not even touched the tip of the iceberg. I always feel that Indo-US relations are so wide in their scope, and as you rightly pointed out, the positive, larger synergies are so large that we tend to probably focus a bit too much on the transactional issues. But thankfully, I mean, listening to you, I feel there is definite confidence that those larger issues are being considered more prominently at your forum as opposed to the transactional ones.
No, we are, and I think Virat, thank you very much for your time, and I enjoyed the conversation, and look forward to continuing it and making sure that we keep on enhancing this partnership. This is important between the 2 countries, and also I think for regional stability. So we need to keep on driving this agenda of building a stronger US-India partnership.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Virat. Take care.